Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. With the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Hello. There are some aspects of the teachings, of Buddhist teachings, or the teachings that are transmitted, generally speaking, in the tradition and in the philosophy of Buddhist teachings that for me, personally speaking, have been of great benefit. But in this particular moment of time, I see that they're even more important. One of these says it's more important how we do things instead of what we do. When we find ourselves in our daily life having to face various situations, I mean, what we do, is important, but it's even more important how we do it, because there's so many things to do. And we don't even have that much control over what's going to happen in life. We don't really have control over what happens, only up to a certain point, but it's very limited. It's really, the idea of a real control is very illusory, but we have much more control over how we do things. Because how I do is also where I develop my own being, my own habits. I give more or less strength to certain dynamics. I construct my own character, my personality in the how and not really in the what. Because if we get too attached to the what, then certain situations, we try to run away from certain situations instead of facing them. In other situations, we develop attachment towards things, and we try to create more and more this world around us that corresponds, to a comfortable, pleasurable world. And this is really an illusion. We know this. We all know this. No one is able to create a pleasurable, perfect, comfortable experience that lasts more than a couple hours. After a while, there's always something here, there, the next day, this or that happens. And here we see, where so many things that were taken as certainties have become uncertainties, in our life, in our society, and on a national level, and on a global level. But where can we find more stability? Is in the how and not really in the what. So how do I face situations, whatever they are? Do I show patience or anger? Another aspect that's really important. In this present moment, am I bringing the present moment to the present, or am I living in the anxiety of the future and in looking back at the past? Because it's something that in our daily life we do it very often, and we live very little in the present moment. And when we have moments of uncertainty, then it becomes even more important to be in the present moment. Otherwise we're just here living within our own imagination that formed by the information we receive, that's all united with our ideas, and the information is so much. I got the message on the phone, and then I saw the news, and then I saw, some kind of image from a film that I saw in the past. All of this adds up, and each one of us creates his own idea of what is going to happen. And when we depend a lot on the what and not on the how, then it becomes very difficult, and it generates a lot of anxiety. Like what can happen to generates anxiety. So for me personally, something that I've said many times, something that gives me a certain amount of peace, is the certainty of uncertainty. That I don't know what is going to happen, when it's going to happen, or how, but I have one certainty. I'm sure that I have certainty in my own tools to be able to face any situation. What I can know, I can know about my own resources to be able to face any situation. And these are the resources we need to cultivate, to develop and make a priority, make important. Take care of um, how we face life. And before getting back to the text, when we give priority to the what, then we try to construct a reality and maintain a reality of a reality of how things happen around us. And when that structure, that reality is not sustained, then we put all of our energy in recreating the structure of those things. Often it's just not even possible. And and until we're able to reconstruct that we live with fear and anxiety. So it becomes, in these moments, it's even more important to put emphasis on, okay, things happen the way they're going to happen. I try to cultivate the present moment in the present moment. I'm going to use this time, which is my own life, to cultivate the things that are virtuous, to to act towards others in a virtuous way, independently of the situation I find myself in. Um, and so this way that I act is going to help me just act virtuously with others, with the world. And personally speaking, I think this is really important, giving this priority, the priority to how we face things instead of what we do. Of course, what we do also has its own importance. And the teachings of Lo Zhong, this mind training, Lo means mind, Zhong means to train, are specifically designed to redirect our mind towards the how to face and manage different situations in life. It doesn't talk about the specific, it doesn't talk about the what, the specific situations. It talks about the how. Someone who has a good level, is mature in this, knows how to face situations well. Today I'm going to read the text from the beginning to where we've gotten. In Sanskrit, Bodhisattva, the jewel garland of the Bodhisattva. This text, written by Atisha in the 11th century, homage to great compassion, homage to the masters, homage to the deities who inspire devotion. Put aside all doubt and hesitation and take delight in earnest practice. Abandon entirely lethargy, dullness, and laziness, and exert yourself constantly with enthusiasm. With mindful recollection, vigilance, and conscientiousness, guard the doors of your senses at all times. Again and again, thrice by night and by day, examine the continuum of your mind. Proclaim your own failings, but do not look for faults in others. Hide any good quality you may have while declaring others' virtues. Let go of concerns for gain or respect, and always renounce the desire for fame. With few wants, remain contented, and repay any kindness you receive. Cultivate loving kindness and compassion, and make your bodhichitta stable. Avoid the 10 unwholesome actions, and let your faith be forever strong. Overcome all anger and conceit, and adopt an attitude of humility, renounce unethical forms of livelihood, and sustain yourself according to the Dharma. Forsake material possessions and adorn yourself with the riches of the Aryas. Leave behind all busyness and distraction and remain in places of solitude. Refrain from idle gossip and always guard your speech. Whenever you see your masters or preceptors, cultivate the wish to serve them with respect. Both those possessing the eyes of Dharma and those first setting out upon the path are to be regarded as your teachers. And when encountering any other beings, look upon them as your parents or your children. Do not befriend those who act in a harmful way, but rely instead on true spiritual friends. Abandon any feelings of hostility or sadness, and be always joyful wherever you may go. And so now let's come back to the explanation about today. Explanation for today. I'm sorry for you, but in Tibetan it's much more beautiful. Avoid becoming attached to anything at all and remain free from craving and desire. Attachment prevents the attainment of happy states and furthermore destroys liberation's vital force. Should you discover a means to happiness, strive constantly to put it into practice. Abandon becoming attached to anything at all and remain free from craving and desire, from attachment. Be without attachment. Why? Attachment prevents the attainment of happy states, and it's going to also cut this root or vital force of liberation. It keeps you from realizing happy states, and at the same time it destroys the vital force of liberation. But it concludes, it says, if you discover a means to happiness, if you find something that really makes you happy, at that point strive constantly to put it into practice. So what do we mean by attachment? There are two different aspects. There's attachment and then desire. Desire is when we observe something, we project onto that thing. We take an object that appears to us as being pleasurable, that we do not possess, and we project our happiness onto that thing. I want that thing because it's going to make me happy, but I don't have it yet. That's desire. When I'm able to obtain something, so I have, any object. I have my cup with tea. I was able to get it. I'm happy with it, and I don't want to let go of it for anything. So in this moment where I have something that appears to me as being pleasurable, and I project my happiness onto it, I am grasping at that object, and I don't want to let it go for any reason. This is a manifestation of attachment. Lama Tsongkhapa in the Lama Rinpoche, he describes desire and attachment, and there's one word for both. It's du chak in Tibetan. It's the union of duba, is desire, and chakpa, which is attachment. And this moment of the text, if you listen to the Tibetan, it says it's attachment. It's chakpa. So this is attitude of attraction towards something. Lama Tsongkhapa said that desire, attachment, they are similar in this. They're like putting oil on a cloth. If you put oil on a cloth of cotton, for example, does it just stay in one spot, or does it spread out? It doesn't spread out quickly, but it does. Little by little, it spreads out, and it becomes very difficult to take it away. And attachment and desire are like that. I mean, they're feelings that come, and then we see that they're inside of us very deeply, and it becomes difficult to free ourselves from these feelings. But there's an important point that we should separate the aspiration towards something that would be virtuous and desire. Recognizing something that really is beneficial to us, and then attachments are two separate things. When we're talking about desire and attachment in these contexts, we're talking about projecting our happiness onto something that cannot sustain it. If I say I have attachment to satisfaction and equilibrium, balance, that's wonderful. It means that you don't want to let go of your balance, or satisfaction, or attachment to peace. This is not the attachment intended like a mental defilement. But normally, when we're talking about attachment related to our mental defilements, we're talking about people, material objects, or sensory objects, or reality as we think it should be. The image of how we think people should act, or how they act with us. And then we have attachment also to concepts, to ideas that also have to do with others. I mean, I want you to think like this. This thing is like that. I'm very attached to this view. So if you say it's not like that, I'm going to be upset. Among all the attachments, the biggest, in my opinion, is not a physical attachment, or it's kind of or not linked to aspects to the body or money. So I think our biggest attachment is our vision of reality as we think it should be. So what generates attachment in particular? I have something, I grasp at that thing, and I don't want to let it go. But sooner or later, I'm going to have to separate from that object. There's nothing that exists that sooner or later we're not going to have to let go of for one reason or another. Maybe because we change, the object changes, or through death. somehow we're going to have to separate from everything around us, and the stronger the attachment we have towards something, our our the our ability to accept the transformation is lesser, and so the suffering is bigger. What's important is to not have attachment towards something. Doesn't mean not give value to it and not know how to enjoy it. When when there's non-attachment, it means that we recognize that it's impermanent, that it's constantly in transformation, it's transitory. I can have enormous pleasure in drinking this tea, being totally aware that after, sooner or later it's going to finish. And that's fine. That's fine. So, and when it ends, that's fine. If I need to be separated from it, that's fine, because it's part of its own nature. But it doesn't mean that I don't like the tea. Because often this is like an erroneous perception that to not have attachment means to not be able to enjoy things or not recognize the beautiful aspects of it. Someone free from attachment or desire has a reality, like a kind of heavy renunciation, disconnected from all pleasures and things. No, one could very easily enjoy something. I mean, it's not easy, but it's possible to enjoy the pleasures of something without this attachment. That the attachment, or the idea that that thing needs to stay forever. When it's there, and I enjoy it. Why is it important to not have attachment to anything? Because where there's attachment, inevitably there will be suffering. The stronger the attachment, then the stronger the conflict and aversion will be there. Problems related to having to separate from that thing. If we go and look at the times where look at the times where there was aggression or conflicts or anger, at 99.9% of the time there was always some kind of attachment or desire behind that. Maybe because maybe it was an attachment to a person or a reality that we see it. This attachment towards others, for example, the way we think they should be, we're just absolutely crazy. Because it's not that I'm attached to you. I'm attached to the you that I think you should be. And when you don't show that being, as the one I think you should be, then it's your fault, and I'm upset, and you're hurting me because you shouldn't be like this. How do you allow yourself to be like this? And then we say that we're normal people. I think when the Buddhas look at us, they think, oh God, these are really in trouble, these people, because sometimes we make just huge problems, and then when we have like moments of clarity, we can see how crazy we're being. Maybe I'm the one that's just a little bit crazy, but it seems so crazy, absurd to enter into conflict with someone because that person doesn't correspond to the idea I have of how he or she should be. I mean, it's not that it's never happened to me either. It's happened to me too. And then you go back to the teachings, you redirect your mind, but in the end, one suffers so much, and conflicts are created, non-virtuous actions, of aggression, because we want to force someone to be the way we think they should be. We want to try to force the situation to be the way we think it should be. So the stronger attachment is, then then our our ability to flow with reality is less. Like the example like I've given before about if someone who knows how to sail. If you know how to sail, it's important to have like the clarity of where you want to go. So I take my boat and I clearly know that I want to sail to that point there. Number two, I need to have the flexibility to adapt myself to wind and to the currents. If while I'm taking the boat in one way, but there's a certain kind of like current that changes or it's different from what I was expecting, and I try to force the boat, then it's just wasted energy that's not even going to work. I need to know how to adapt myself to the wind and the current to be able to bring to be able to take the boat and myself where I want to go. So it's important to have clarity of their objective and be flexible with the reality that shows itself, moment after moment, day after day. So if someone says, "Oh, this shouldn't have been like this," or if that person had said this, if this person had done that, okay, great. Okay, now you understood. So, prepare yourself for the next time. I mean, we need to face what we have instead of constantly looking back and what happened here and there. So, and the stronger our attachment to something is, the our the the less able we become to face situations. Repeat often our attachment is often not for an object or but but for our own choice. It's what we wanted. For example, I've seen you go to a restaurant, you ask for something, and the waiter brings you something different from what you ordered. Once where once when the restaurant used to exist and you go to a restaurant and you ordered something, and then when when a dish arrived, when the person says, "Oh, this isn't what I ordered," and then there's no space even to enjoy that thing. Maybe it's actually even good. I mean, it doesn't happen to everyone, but I've seen it happen. I've seen this happen, because there's this expectation that we create of reality. So this attachment generates a lot of suffering. Also because attachment is based often on the value that we give to things. And let's remember that the value of something, whether it's beautiful or ugly or a lot or a little, small or big, is based on a comparison. It's incredible, this thing. It's wonderful. And it's quite shocking, isn't it? That having a lot or having a little, just that doesn't exist. Exists only in relation to a comparison to something else. And all of us, even animals, we end up having this comparison. There was this study that I've talked about a couple of times. It's called the fairness test. Giustizia. Okay. So they took two monkeys that knew each other, and they 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 put them in cages, but there was a window between them. They could see each other, and they had taught the monkeys that if they give the monkey a little stone, and then the monkey would give the stone to the scientist, the researcher, and then the researcher would give him something. And so then we get a piece of cucumber. So give and they would repeat this because they were really satisfied with this piece of cucumber that they would get by giving the stone. At a certain point, they repeat the same thing, but to the first monkey, they give him a cucumber for the stone given back, and then instead the second monkey, instead of a cucumber, they give him a grape. And then they go back to the other monkey, and instead of giving him a grape, they give him a cucumber. And he gets so angry, and he takes the stone, he throws it on the ground, and then they try again. So, so stone, give back the stone, and there's grape, the first one. Then stone, and and then and then this monkey gets so mad when he gets the cucumber. He's like tapping the stone against the glass, and it's getting really angry, even through the cucumber on the ground, you know. And he's not upset because the cucumber wasn't good. He's upset because the cucumber wasn't grape, you know, as were the other one, the other one received. And the scientists say that this happens with so many other animals, with dogs and birds, you know. We don't even need to do this experiment with human beings because we know what the outcome would be. But if we think for ourselves, what determines something to be good or bad, or something's a lot or something's too little? Is it like an intrinsic um, um, characteristic, or is it something that we attribute it to it? But something what's crazy is that when we have a strong attachment to something, very often that thing to which we have attachment is just an idealized idea. I mean, it's something absolutely fictional and and imagined. So we'll never be satisfied. No, never. Because it could be better, because it isn't the way I think it should be, because here and there, I mean, it's just never enough. So it's never going to be good enough. I remember once a great friend of Lama Ganchen's said to Gyurme, it happened once that someone came to Lama Ganchen. I don't know, I have no idea when this was. I remember just the moment and the situation, but not when. So he had promised a marvelous project in Nepal. He had really promised great things, and everyone really, it generated a lot of energy to do that thing. And at a certain point, when that person who promised that, he just dropped it all as if nothing had happened, and lots of people were upset and said, well, I'm happy and I'm grateful to that person. Why? At least, you know, at least he gifted us some wonderful days, and you know, where we could and, you know, for just a few days, we were all really happy, imagining, you know, these wonderful things. I mean, it's just really important how we relate to things, isn't it? Because expectations to which we grasp, I mean, it generates so much suffering. So abandon the attachment, to abandon the attachment to the people the way we think they should be, or places that we think, places and objects, and to situations the way we think they should be, doesn't mean to not care about the world and the people and objects, and how we need to value them and take care, you know, to the best of our ability, of course. But flow, let life flow, and not stay stuck. I see this period where most people are closed up at home, and I think about, for example, the fact that many people have a one-time opportunity that is very that would be very difficult to reproduce. You know, which is to spend a long period of time with one's own children. There's so many parents who are home with their children, small children, and normally they just don't have time to educate their kids to stay together, etc. Because work and school, this and that, you know, the time available is very reduced. So this is a great opportunity. But one is not able to live it well, you know, just to take advantage of the opportunity because one is attached to a reality that just doesn't exist right now. Well, instead, I mean, what do I have now? I have this. Let's use it to the best, you know, the best way possible. You know, and so we need to just flow with what we have instead of staying blocked because things aren't the way things are. You know. Abandon, avoid attachment to anything, and remain free from craving and desire. And this translation is not so great because here in Tibetan, it says abandon. So it says be free. Yeah, English is the English translation is fine. Remain free from craving and desire. Doesn't mean to not give value to things um, or to not enjoy things. It means accept reality, the reality that we live, knowing how to give oneself the direction, you know, the right direction, the direction we want. All of this because attachment prevents the attainment of happy states. It keeps us from attaining happy states. You can read this in two states, that the attachment keeps us from being reborn in higher realms like human realm, or you can take it more literally and say that attachment keeps us from attaining states of happiness. Because when we have a strong attachment, at the end, we're never satisfied. And no matter where we go, it's just never enough. Because reality doesn't correspond, hardly ever, to our idealized image of things, of reality, of the person, of our body, of our situations, of work, of our things, of everything. The idealized image. If we talk about the body, for example, the body is in constant transformation. Okay, you know, I don't have hair like I had before. My hair is getting gray, or I have gained weight. You're alive. You're alive. If you want to be in a state where you're never gonna get gray hair, or you're never gonna gain weight, well then you just should get embalmed. You should be embalmed, and then you'll last longer. But even there, not forever. I was impressed. One day I had a small drone at home, and I was doing a trial, and then I gave it to Jose Maria in Spain because he has a land in Spain and needed to see the extension of his land. So I gave him this. So anyway, I was at home playing with this little drone, and then it went above, and it took a photograph from above, and it was the first time that I saw this hairline, you know, this receding hairline. It would have a lot less help, and now I think if we took another picture, then it'll be, even more. Let me just make a trial. You can see it a little bit. Huh? You can see even now. But this is this is a beautiful sign. When I saw it, I said, "Oh, wonderful!" I had the mental image of myself as a child. You know, I had hair that didn't had this little point. But that's long gone. I mean, this is a sign I'm alive. The years are going by. Otherwise, we pray, can I have we pray for to have a long life, but to have a long life means that you get old. The only alternative to, having a long life is to die young. There is no alternative. But instead, we stay grasped. We grasp at our material situation, relationships with other people, to our body, our situation. Instead, everything's in constant movement, and it's normal that things are like that. So let's just let it flow. Let's go with the flow. Because otherwise, if there's too much attachment, we're never going to enjoy anything. Because in the present moment, I'll just always be taken by the fear that things are going to finish. Like tea, for example. What am I going to do? When there's no more tea. And I'm not going to enjoy it while I'm drinking it. And then when it finishes, what am I going to do? How am I going to get some? And so then one then can't stay in the present moment. So, and attachment generates conflict too. So much conflict. If we observed, and I'm just going to repeat one more time, the conflicts that we live, the most of them, almost all conflicts, come from our own attachment to reality as we think it should be. It's an idealized image that we have of reality. Maybe we get mad because that person is not doing what he should do. That person is doing what he is able to do within his own paradigm and the education, the means, his karma, the attitude he's had, all of that together. We can repeat and repeat. Oh, I've said this so many times, I'm not going to say it anymore. Sometimes I see Rinpoche, Lama Gangchen, somebody comes. He receives this person. He's so kind, and the person says, and then he says something to him, and then I sometimes I have this like flash of that same person saying the exact same thing 15 years before, but Lama Gangchen with this patience and the same kindness, he receives this person, so, and then when the person does understand, Lama Gangchen doesn't say, "Oh, finally you understood. I've been telling you this forever." But instead he says, "No, wonderful, wonderful," as if the idea even came from that person. So our job is to interact with the world in the best way we can, and try to make sure that our interactions are virtuous and positive. But most of our conflicts come from this attachment, from this idealized reality that we have. You see this at work. Oh, but this shouldn't be like this, or I did like this, and this person should have done like that, and he didn't do it, and this shouldn't have been like that, and this can't be like this. I mean, all this is the attachment that comes from ignorance, but it manifests itself in attachment. So attachment doesn't bring happiness; it brings frustration, conflict, sadness, suffering, and furthermore, it destroys liberation's vital force. Attachment blocks us. It leaves us, how can I say, just chained, blocked, or one's not able to move forward. Why? Why does attachment just cut the the force, the vital force of liberation, because it has this characteristic of like of believing in an illusion. There's a moment where somebody comes and says, okay, suffering comes from mental defilements and from karma, and so suffering, the all-permeating suffering, it's a cycle of samsara, you know, that we should try to get out of, you know, etc., etc. And one can explain all of that, and there's a moment where someone understands it, but then, you know, someone goes back and says, oh, but food and this and that. So this attachment shows us how how pleasurable samsara is, because behind attachment there's something particular, which is that we believe in the illusion that if we think that we believe that if everything is the way we think it should be, then we would be happy. But we know that's an illusion. We know that it's just a trap. So why does it destroy liberation's vital force? Because we're not able to put energy into the path to eliminate ignorance and our mental defilements. When our energy is fully invested in trying to make reality the way we think it should be. Attachment is harmful. It's, Instead, should you discover a means to happiness, if you find something that is really beneficial, something that helps you sustain and maintain a state of happiness, at that point, strive constantly, day and night, minute by minute, second by second, to put it into practice. It's not that you can't have attraction towards something. It's not that you can't have desire intended as wanting something. It's it's not that you can't have attachment understood as recognizing something as being precious and trying to keep it. When we find something actually is a tool for happiness, at that point it needs to be kept. Love, respect, gratitude, virtuous actions in general, faith, a relationship of trust. There's so many things that sustain, even on a gross level, a healthy environment. You tell me, have you ever known someone who says, oh, nature hurts me, a pure environment is harmful to me, pollution is good for me. Oh, how wonderful, this is a polluted city. I, I, I love it when you can't see the blue sky. I've never seen anyone say that. From the super materialistic ones to the great, the highly realized spiritual ones, and we all love to be able to breathe pure air because it's good for us. It makes us happy, and at that point, we should put energy into maintaining the things that are good for us. And if a pure environment is helpful for us, is beneficial for us, then we should put energy into creating a pure environment. So these things that can sustain this happiness, energy should be put into sustaining these things. But why is it so difficult sometimes? Because we're used to certain things. We've been conditioned from on a personal level, social level, cultural level. And if someone doesn't have a kind of awareness and just repeats that lifestyle, even after when he develops a kind of awareness, it's difficult to change habits. But little by little, one can realize a change those habits. So attachment is harmful, and as I was reading yesterday. It was a text, a Kadampa master with said, actually a disciple of Dom Tompa was said that so obtaining the object of desire is pleasurable, but going 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 beyond um, going beyond going beyond the desire is even better than getting that object of desire, because when you obtain that object desired, there's a momentary sense of peace, but after a while it vanishes because you want something else. When you're able to go beyond the desire without needing to follow it, and without needing to obtain that object, you find a sense of peace that is much better, much more stable. So let's put energy into what is truly beneficial, that can really help us. This is a very practical piece of advice for on a mundane level, but also for your spiritual path. Any task you have set out to do should be completed before embarking on another. With this approach, both will be achieved, but doing otherwise, nothing will be accomplished. When you start, when you start to do something, finish that without, before you start doing something else. This is not such a difficult, philosophical point, But in practice, it's more difficult. Otherwise, Atisha wouldn't have put it here for this heartfelt advice. And in the commentary, it's explained that if, for example, I'm in a period of my life where I'm reflecting on the preciousness of, sorry, if I'm like meditating, for example, and I haven't realized the preciousness of the life, it's not the time to meditate on 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 impermanence or on bodhichitta, for example. I need to finish one because they're like steps. So impermanence, for example, has a strength once I have the awareness of the preciousness of this life, and at that point, then I can deepen my understanding of impermanence. But versus karma, and then impermanence, and then bodhicitta. I mean, there's like steps. There's a path to follow. So first, I need to go the first step, then second step. It's linear. It's a linear path we need to follow. So I can every day to reflect on the various passages. Like first I do take this step, and then I'll have to do that one, and then I'll have to do the next one. And I imagine myself doing all the steps, but my energy needs to be mostly in the step where I find myself. So if I begin, if I stay on one step, and then and then I stop, and then I imagine another step, and I stop, but then I'm not going to do anything. I want to be a doctor. I want to be an architect. I want to be an artist. I want to be. I don't know. I study a little bit of this, I study a little bit of that, you do a little bit of this, you do a bit of that, and then you stop here, you stop there, you pick it up again here, you pick up that there, and then you do nothing. I mean, you can do anything in your life, and I think that if somebody has time and desire, energy, you can become anything you want, but, but do one, and then, you embark on one thing, and you finish that, and then so when you start something, you can also open up other horizons. But But what's important is that the thing that you have started, you need to finish that. It just reminds me of this very high learned master who wrote many books at the same time. He had this great ability, had so much knowledge, and he had made a stupa where outside of a temple, and he would do the circumambulation of the stupa, and in each of the four corners of the stupa, he would leave a scribe, a secretary who would write, and when he would go walk by that person, and he would recite the words for for that text he was writing, these four scribes, and he never stopped. And while he was doing the circumambulation, so he was actually writing four different books at the same time on four different subjects, and he was able to write more than 100 volumes, each one more than 1,000 pages. What's important is that when we begin something, we need to finish it. Why is it so difficult sometimes? Because often we're taken by the enthusiasm of beginning something, of something new. So, and when there's something new, we say, oh, this is wonderful. But when that newness has faded, and once the serotonin is no longer there, but there we need to give continuity, which is not so easy. But it's really important to do it, because otherwise we're just never going to be able to conclude things. We begin a little bit here, we begin there, then we drop this, we drop that. We're always starting something, but we're never really concluding what we've begun. It's normal that we begin something, and then as we go, maybe the conditions change and we're not able to conclude it, or we put it on hold, and then we know in the future we're going to conclude it. Or maybe needs change, conditions change. That can happen, of course. But what's important is to create this habit in our life, to begin something, follow something, and conclude something, and not just leave things, halfway done. Also, doing like that, one is going to diminish this dependency on newness, and so you don't need to be constantly stimulated by new things. But I see this strong this strong dependency on visual stimulation. I see that as a problem in our society today. I'm sure that that's also related to some kind of chemical response, because there's a cortisone or other hormones are released, that bring on some kind of sensation. When there's sensation of new, this newness can create a kind of addiction. So we to feel alive, to feel good, we need strong stimuli. I mean, look at films. So compare the films today to films 30, 40 years ago. The times they were slower. Now we need like stronger images, or texts that are stronger to bring out these emotions in people. So I see this in films. It just seems like more and more. There's a kind of degeneration. Anyway, this is not the subject of today. We don't need to talk about the cinema. But the point is that we need this. We need them. We have a greater need for stimuli, and so we should be careful about not being so addicted or not needing this strong stimuli. So we can create these milestones to say, like, I need to get here. Okay, I've gotten to this point, I've done that, so that gives like a little bit of stimulation, along our path. This is okay. Or in certain cases, something important would be to have a greater objective, and then you divide that great objective into smaller milestones or objectives, and the same thing happens with our own spiritual path. Now let's go ahead a little bit more. Take no delight in harmful deeds. Should thoughts of superiority arise, then and there subdue your pride, your arrogance, and recall the instructions of your master. Should you ever feel daunted or dejected, uplift yourself with encouragement and praise. Prayer. Praise. There's a question about the Italian translation, because tupa means, I guess, praise. So, okay, tupa is praise here, but in Italian was translated as a prayer, because a praise can also be a kind of prayer. But here it just means to, praise your own qualities. So, so free yourself, separate the joy from non-virtue. This means don't rejoice, don't feel joy, with non-virtue that you see around. And then you could see, like, when do I rejoice for non-virtuous things? And many times, I remember as a child, for example, at school. So children, for example, who hurt, like maybe children were like fighting, and one child hurt another one. Then you say, oh, well, good for him. He deserved it. I mean, how many times have you heard something like that? Or if something happens to someone, it says, oh, well, I know I shouldn't say so, but he really deserved that. Good for him. It's really horrible to rejoice for the suffering of someone else. It's terrible. But on different levels, it happens, small, medium, and on a large scale. But we shouldn't connect ourselves with non-virtuous. Non-virtuous. Not so long ago, I was watching a film, and something that really struck me was that at a certain point I saw that I was generating a kind of aversion towards a character who was shown as, really the bad guy, who was abusing other people, treated them badly. And so when something bad happened to that person, there was a kind of good feeling, like, oh, got you, okay, you deserve that. Good. I mean, it's horrible. And we need to protect ourselves. You know, when you see something that you know that if you ever see that kind of feeling coming out, then you need to stop it right away. It's one of those things where, like if I have aversion towards someone and something negative happens to that person and I rejoice. So I'm I'm normalizing, that feeling, which is not normal. Someone treats someone with aversion and violence, but the person who, um, the person who, um, the person who was on the receiving end of that aggression, we think it was deserved, So we think that's fine like that, and I lose my discernment, my ability to judge. So when we see non-virtuous actions, we shouldn't rejoice for them. We should disconnect from that. We should not identify ourselves with those. This doesn't matter to whom it's done. This verse, that was verse 14. Take no delight in harmful deeds. Should thoughts of superiority arise, should thoughts of superiority arise, then and there subdue your arrogance. So here is translated also as pride, but the pride, there's also a virtuous pride. Instead, arrogance, it just means feeling superior to another, and this is absolutely not good. So should thoughts of superiority arise, there and then, right away, eliminate that arrogance. Arrogance in Tibetan, I like this word a lot. Nga gyal. Nga means me, I. Gyal means king, the victorious one, victory. Nga gyal, I'm king. This is I'm the victorious one. I'm the king. This is the word that's used for arrogance in Tibet. And to be able to do this, recall the instructions of your master. So as soon as you see that arrogance arises, how does that, when you compare yourself to someone else and you put yourself in a position of superiority, recall the instructions of your teacher, of your master, and put yourself into a position of humility. Open yourself up to another instead of seeing him as inferior, saying each one tries to do the best that he can with the conditions he has. The stronger our arrogance is, the stronger the suffering related to that will be. This is something that we could spend hours talking about this, and now's not the time. But it comes from comparing ourselves to others. So it's important to compare ourselves to others as little as possible. Say, I have my qualities, I have my defects, I have my conditionings, my habits. I have behaviors that are bad. I have bad behavior that harms me and others. These are negative minds. But I also have many qualities too. When this comes up, when these thoughts of superiority, imagine your teacher just right there who's saying, no, don't do this, it's not like this. And then we need to calm our mind a little bit and not put ourselves into, not feel superior towards others. Among many of our mental defilements, those that generate conflict and suffering. One of the worst is arrogance, and it's actually part of one of the six root negative minds. Did you ever feel daunted or dejected, or discouraged? Where you say, oh, I'm not able to do it, or I can't do that, I'm not able. Maybe someone just feels really down, a little depressed, a little discouraged, sad. Then, so from the deepest part of yourself, then praise yourself. Recall your qualities. Recall the good things you have. Have good self-esteem without putting yourself into a position of superiority. Recall to yourself, what your qualities are. Yeah, we've done so many things. We've each one of us has been able to do so much. What's hard is that when the mind is taken in one direction, then we see everything through those lenses. But we have so many qualities, each one of us. So recognize that. Know how to praise yourself. It's not easy. It's not at all happy. Praise yourself without becoming arrogant. It's very difficult. I mean, praise your qualities without comparing yourself to others. It's not simple, but it's not that hard either. So we need to remember our qualities without getting into this process of comparing ourselves or some kind of idealized image of ourselves. So the balance here is maintain good self-esteem, recognizing your own qualities without having to compare yourself to others and putting yourself, as you're setting yourself as superior to others. This is the essence, more or less, of this. And each one of these verses, would be enough for a lifetime. If we took each one of these, if we put these into practice, each one of these pieces of advice, it would be so beneficial. As I said a few days ago, when we began these teachings, these Lojong teachings, the minimum prerequisite is the determination to put it into practice, to put these teachings into practice. So let's read them again. Let's reflect on this, and this is the direction of how we're going to face life. So independently of the situation I find myself in, I'm going to try to be satisfied or not be attached to the things that surround me, or not feel not be superior, to not have aversion or attraction. There's so many important pieces of advice given to us. Advice given on how to face life, not on what to do. And this makes it very large. Maybe it might not seem very practical, but it is. It's very practical because these are situations we find ourselves in every day, every moment. So today we're going to stop here. And now we're going to do some mantras together for all the people dedicated to people who are ill, dedicated to everyone who's out there helping directly. There's the people who are sick, all the doctors and the nurses, all the personnel and the people who are just hands-on with this pandemic, and the people are suffering, and this, the strength of our prayers really is going to help. One of my teachers, Captain Albagnano Rinpoche, he would say that the first thing we need to reach something, first we need to desire. We need to desire it. And so to pray for something is to desire that thing to happen. May every being ailing with disease be freed at once from every malady. May every sickness that affects the living be wholly and forever absent from the world. May medicines be full of strength. May the prayers and mantras, the healing mantras, be chanted with success. May the beings who generate sicknesses like viruses and bacteria have compassion of those who are sick. May beings everywhere who suffer torment in their minds and bodies have, by virtue of my merit, joy and happiness in boundless measure. At dawn or at dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Thank you, everyone, and tomorrow.